Hey riders, let's move on in our climbing progression, and now let's talk about the standing climb. The standing climb is commonly used for three reasons. The first is that I want to get more power. I may be struggling in the current gear that I'm in, but not able to shift. So I'm going to stand up and use my body weight to power through as the climb may be getting just a little bit steeper. Another reason is that the climb is excessively steep and it's impossible for me to remain in the seated and keep my balance. Imagine I have to get really forward in order to climb out of a drainage ditch or something that is really steep. I'd have to stand up for that. Another common reason is that we're on a really long seated climb and our butt's beginning to hurt. And if we just stand up and with our climbing method for just a few seconds or more, we'll get a little bit of a break as we use some different muscles, and when we sit back down, we'll feel a little bit more relaxed as we continue seated climbing from there. As we are standing climbing, we're going to think about obviously standing up over the saddle. We are going to use forceful pedal strokes left and right, but then we're also going to pull with our hands. And I'd like to suggest that when you push down with your right foot, you pull with your right hand. When you push down with your left foot, you pull with your left hand. And this creates a rocking motion. You're using both your legs and your arms in order to create more power as you're climbing in that standing position. I'm going to show you what that looks like now. All right, coaches, let's talk now about a few progressions related to the standing climb. After they have done that first example that you demonstrated, let's consider steepening the climb or lengthening the climb to give them the opportunity to practice more. Once they've done that, another great progression would be to use different gears. Have them shift 2 gears easier or more and help them to realize how that may create an element of awkwardness as they're pedaling too quickly while standing. And then alternatively, repeat the exercise being in harder gears, maybe too hard, and help them to realize that at some point they're not going to be able to get those pedals around. And that's going to help them to realize that we always want to be in a gear that allows us to accelerate, and we should feel the difference between those. Another great progression would be to combine the standing climbing and the seated climbing. Consider finding a climbing area that has different grades, some shallower and then steeper and then maybe shallow again. And what you could do in order to make that easier to find is use a grassy hillside similar to what you see behind me and have riders traverse across it for a moment while seated and then turn straight up the slope and stand up. And then sit back down as they traverse again, and then alternating going straight up and standing. Hey coaches, let's go over a few errors that we commonly see related to the standing climb. The first is that the rider is too tall and too far back. That may cause them to struggle as they're getting those pedals around, and also may be difficult to control their direction as they're losing contact with the ground with that front tire. We want to help the riders to realize that they should have their arms bent forward towards those handlebars in order to stay balanced in the middle of the bike. Another very common error is that the rider's in the wrong gear, and that's going to be either difficult for them to get those cranks around if it's too hard, or difficult for them to maintain their balance as it may be too easy and the pedals are moving or rotating much too quickly. Another very common error is the rider is losing contact and slipping with the rear tire. That may be that they're in too easy of a gear, creating too much torque and overwhelming the traction of the rear tire, or they're not pedaling smoothly and being a little bit too forceful from left to right, almost pausing the pressure in between, which causes that tire to slip when they push really hard all of a sudden.